As we've seen. So everybody, welcome our friend Sheila. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So for full disclosure, Rhonda's a family member. I'm the white member of the family. So I'm thrilled to be here. Actually, people do get paid to be in the fundraising world. And our objective today, can everybody hear me? My voice sometimes doesn't carry that well, so raise your hand if you can't. But really the objective today is to really fundraising 101, and I think they gave me 4 hours. Okay, well, maybe 45 minutes. But we'll just really hit the tip of the iceberg relative to fundraising. There's really interesting statistics now in fundraising and the for-profit world and the collaborative opportunities. So we'll touch a little bit on that. And I really want to thank folks, Nora, Brady, Sandy, Rhonda. It has really been such an experience for me to get to know what you all do. I actually had the opportunity to do some mission work with these wonderful individuals in Jordan. And it was an experience of a lifetime. And although I've been in healthcare for 20 years doing fundraising, never had the opportunity to watch the lights go on for an individual to hear for the first time. And that was miraculous. So what you all do is amazing, and it was just a wonderful experience. Fundraising is probably one of the top 2 things people hate to do, speak and then fundraise. So hopefully I'll get you more comfortable with it by the end of the day. I think it's pretty cool that we're here today as the Pope delivered a message around the world. So as you were here, the Pope was delivering the message, and it was so loud and clear about focusing on serving those underprivileged people in the world and in our country. And really that's what we're talking about today from a philanthropic perspective. Whether you're Catholic or not, there's Luke 21, to whom much is given, much is required. And I really believe that at the end of the day, we've all been blessed, and you're serving many people. Can you imagine how many more you can serve if you look at the philanthropy end of things to help evolve your practices? So we'll talk a little bit about that. So again, I'm going to talk just quickly about Dwyer Philanthropy so you understand the mission of it, philanthropy landscape. I think it's really important to have a broader perspective of what philanthropy is, cause marketing opportunities, which I think is really aligned with your organization and where you're going, and then opportunities and challenges. I really encourage this to be a dialogue format, so if you have any questions throughout, speak up, because while we're on the topic, rather be able to address it. So for me, from a philanthropic perspective, educate, develop, and sustain. So this is your 101 course in really educating you in the philanthropy end of things, but really I go into organizations and help them develop their philanthropic platforms, which I've been sort of doing on the side, and then creating a sustainable model. And so providing not-for-profits with fresh perspective on building and strengthening the programs. There's analytic information and systematic methods to fundraising. So there's an art and a science to fundraising, just like there's an art and a science to the work that you do every day. Donor-centric model is really important. Donor-centric meaning if you meet the donor's needs, your needs will be met, and understanding first and foremost, just like you understand with your clients what their needs are and then you meet them, it's no different in the fundraising world. Adaptive, collaborative campaign management approach, and then focus on building a sustainable and fundraising model. I've been doing fundraising, we'll skip that slide, but I've been doing fundraising forever, about 30 years. I did 20 years in a healthcare arena, and then actually worked here in Chicago for a microfinance organization that did microloans for impoverished men and women in third world countries. So that's where your international piece is fascinating. The differences of the needs of people in our country here versus other countries is so vastly different. There's that saying of, I hear, I remember, I hear, I forget, I see, I remember, I experience, I understand. And when you go to these countries and see firsthand and feel firsthand the challenges, it's amazing. Now, when I was at Opportunity International, I'd always get many comments from people in our own country, what about people in our own backyard? And I think we're talking about both elements here in the room, and that you've got people in our own backyard that are impoverished and have needs also. And so I think it's based on wherever your passion is and wherever your connectivity is and how you can create your own opportunities. So just in the philanthropy landscape, $358 billion on an annual basis in this country, right, are raised in support of organizations. It's huge. And when you look at where the funds are going, religious is obviously a significant component of that. Education is huge, human services, foundations, health is a big chunk of it, public society, arts and culture, international affairs, a smaller slice, environmental, and then gifts to individuals. So it is truly and 2014 was an incredible year for giving, right? And it's don't ask, don't get. There are greater opportunities in this country for fundraising. We have a really strong philanthropic platform in the country to give, and then of course there's also tax advantages for folks to give. That's in Fundraising 102. The constituent group, a lot of people assume that most of the funds are coming from corporations, and that's actually not the case. Most funds are coming through individuals, and if you look at 72% individuals, but you combine that with the foundations, and you're really at about 85%, because most foundations are individual giving. So corporations are a much smaller slice than people think. There's still opportunities there, and actually the foundation or the corporation platform is growing because of the cause marketing front, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. Highest level of giving ever in 2014. A lot of that has to do with economic conditions. They've been much more favorable than they were in 2009. Driven by improved economy, 2/3 of all households are giving. And then of course religious traditions are a very significant component to why people give, and that's how people learn to give, through religious organizations. And then certainly the stock market. When you can give highly appreciated assets, it's a great way to make a contribution, and you get a great tax credit. And then of course there's the new technology, the Giving Tuesday and online giving and apps for giving. And that's not just limited to the millennials and the younger population, but a lot of people are going to online giving and Give Now, Donate Now. So there's the masses, and then there's a major donor platform, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Why people give? People believe in the cause and want to perpetuate an idea, right? Involved and see needs firsthand, want to be a part of something larger, expected by your peers. So if you're asked by a peer, there is that peer pressure and collaborative opportunity from a giving. And the simple one, because they're asked. I can't tell you how many calls I've been on, and I go in and train staff where, as well as volunteers and CEOs, and they just can't do the ask, right? They'll talk about the program, and you walk away from the meeting and the ask is never made. So we'll talk a little bit about that, because there is an art to that. But simply said, if you don't ask for the money, you don't end up getting it. So you can talk all day long and go into appointments, but if you're not comfortable actually making the ask, it's much more challenging to fundraise. And then what comes through loud and clear, and it's why I'm here today, is because of Rhonda's passion. She invited me to an event at her home to learn more about this project. And it was through her passion. I've got tons of projects that I'm involved with, and I'm never looking for additional nonprofit partnerships. Yet Rhonda's passion for what she's doing, and particularly the work in Jordan, just exuded, right? And that made a difference, and that's why I went, and why I ended up in Jordan, and actually why I'm here. Why people give. They feel a sense of accomplishment when activities produce positive results, gain satisfaction, moved at how a gift can make a difference, and those are the wonderful stories and pictures of watching someone here for the first time. And then tax advantages. Tax advantages do make a difference for folks. So when it's tax deductible, 501c3, It's, it is, people are well versed in understanding and want, people, in order, do you guys have your 501c3 formally set up? Yeah. So it is an important component. So the path to successful solicitation, and this is the biggest challenge: right person, right amount, right time, and right purpose. And this is really talking about more of major donor platform. Major donor fundraising is all relative based on the size of the organization. It could be a $5,000 gift, it could be a $1 million gift, depending on the organizations I'm partnering with. Where mass marketing, you can send out mass mailings, and that's what most people are comfortable in fundraising, right? Because that way you don't have to do the ask. You send a mailing out and people respond to the mailing. Well, the challenge, if someone isn't already aligned with your organization and you are new, is that it will end up in the pile and probably never matriculate into a gift. So to have a leave behind that supports the ask, but if you're, most people are more comfortable with sending mailings out than they are live fundraising, and the results are not nearly as great. So I really encourage you to think of major donor fundraising, and again, that's all relative based on what your thoughts are. A major gift could be a $500 gift, but it's identifying who folks are that might want to partner with you, and then facilitating the ask, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Basic steps are informing the prospect, cultivating, raising their sights relative to the organization, and then asking for a thoughtful, proportionate gift. So identify, inform, involve, responsibility, commit, 5 stages of fundraising. Sometimes you can do that in all one meeting if they're pretty much aligned with the cause or you have a great connection. But to be able to do that with someone that has never heard of your organization and you're not their best friend, to close a gift in one-time ask, one-time meeting is challenging. So I threw this slide in just if you guys ever end up where you're going to look for someone to fundraise for you as an organization, which is an option as you evolve. These are just some metrics. There is very much a science to fundraising. So when you wonder why health and education are up there relative to contributions, when you go back to the slide where they're getting the biggest proportion of the $38 billion, it's because they have hired fundraisers that are focusing on fundraising every single day. So many smaller, and actually I've really decided my best target market for me working with organizations is a mid-size. Because the smaller organizations are not willing to commit to paid fundraisers who wake up every single day focused on the cause and have some skill set in order to close gifts. It is really challenging. Most boards I work with, well, can't we just do that as a board and we'll do volunteers? We don't want to pay someone to fundraise. The return on investment is significant because you've got someone living and breathing, thinking about fundraising and focusing on fundraising every single day. And that's why the hospitals and the universities do extremely well, because they're targeting those that have years and years and years of experience, and they're out there in a sophisticated manner raising billions of dollars. Key campaign drivers, and when I say campaign, campaign's relative. I obviously focus a lot on capital campaigns, but campaign could be like a kickoff of this organization, right? A case statement is really critical to your success, and I brought a few examples, and again, these are more capital campaign focused, but an organization that I'm working with is Sunshine, which is a developmentally disabled organization, and their goal is to raise $3.5 million, right? Not huge dollars, but significant dollars, and their case for support is really just summarizing what it is they're fundraising for. So whether you're introducing your organization, I really encourage you as an organization to come up with a common case for support that really outlines what it is that you're fundraising for. You could have specific geographic needs that are different, but your case for support, it would be easier if you focused on one case for support and then personalized it by region or by organization. But really what a case for support does is it just outlines the organization itself, getting more specific into the need, the opportunities of partnership, and then how to give, and then the individuals and organizations that are partnered for the cause. But at the end of the day, it's all about grounded in strategic vision. I think you all are working on that. Big ideas, compelling and concise. The constituents is the group of folks that you're going to ask for the support, and it's really making significant philanthropic investments. So identifying who are the best people that might partner with you. And I think for every region, it might be a little different. For some regions, it might be more business-centric, and for other regions, it might be more smaller communities. It might be more individual-centric. Rhonda, I think you probably have a combination in Toledo of businesses and individuals that you've targeted for your fundraising. And then when you get a little bit more sophisticated, there's lots and lots of public information and analytic data to further hone who your best prospects are. That's in a little bit more advanced, but there are ways that you can identify people that have a passion for your cause, and then there's public information that can further hone who your best prospects might be from a financial sense. So there's public data out there that merges, they've done the analog research, credit card debt, wealth indicators, because wealth indicator is not the single most important indicator of why someone's going to give, right? It's, are they philanthropic? And so there's data that tracks you as an individual, that you've given 20 gifts and 10 of them have gone to Here Care, and your average gift is X amount, and you've got credit card debt of X amount, and it will give you an analysis of what the ask should be and what the annual as well as capital capacity of that person is. So it's pretty fascinating information. And then catalyst for successful fundraising campaign is a campaign steering committee, board members, and other affiliated constituents. So every single time I go in to do a fundraising program, I don't automatically take the board of directors as the people that are going to implement the program, but I put together a steering committee of folks that will help us be successful in the fundraising campaign, right? So if I had a practice in Adrian, Michigan, and I was looking to develop a fundraising program in support of my practice, I would identify some movers and shakers in the community that are able to make an ask and able to open doors for me so that we could be successful, right? So that's something that you should consider. And what I do find are that people who are in sales, wealth managers, bankers, are really astute, and they make for the most successful fundraising capital campaign leaders. So, and again, capital campaign is all relative based on what you want to do. We'll talk a little bit more about what that means for you all and what you're trying to do, whether or not you want to get your arms around an aggregate campaign, or maybe put tools in place so that you can be individually successful within the communities you're serving. Cause marketing. So, there's the Pope, and I'm wired to live in the nonprofit world. Not everybody is. And so then you ask, well, what's in this for me? So some of you around this room are going to be more philanthropic or nonprofit oriented than others. These next few slides, for those of you that maybe aren't and you don't have to raise your hands, that maybe aren't the ones that are totally in on the nonprofit world, but what this might do to help your practice. It's called cause marketing. So a lot of the major companies across the country are jumping into partnering with nonprofits because they're finding they have more loyal consumers. It makes a difference in their following and in their profits at the end of the day. So at Opportunity International, although I just heard news of Caterpillar, they're laying off tons of people, but one of our greatest cause marketing partners at Opportunity International is Caterpillar. And it wasn't because Caterpillar, I'm sure they thought Opportunity International was great, but they were partnering with us in a $50 million contribution with a focus in Asia because that's their primary market and they want to grow there, right? So they're aligning their foundation strategic dollars, instead of just giving out millions of dollars to the organizations that are asking for funds, they're strategically aligning their dollars, marketing and philanthropic buckets, to how they're going to grow their business. So I went and saw the vice president of marketing at P&G to talk with her about her partnership with Opportunity International. She said, you know what, I don't care. This is all great. I see great non-for-profits every single day. Tell me what you're going to do to grow my market share in the feminine products in Africa, right? Then I can consider some dollars in support of your organization. But I can't go to the committee and sell something if it's not. So there's significant alignment that's happening in major corporations, as well as I've got, I remember at Bixby Medical Center when I worked for ProMedica Health System, you know, as simple as, so that's one extreme, and then I had Dr. Tatiana Masick, and the only reason that she demanded every time she played in a golf tournament, which was fundraising for the medical center, and she would have pictures taken throughout the day, and she posted them in her lobby and in her patient rooms. And it's because her customers loved the fact that she was giving back to the community, because of course, in the physician world, there aren't a lot of physicians that contribute back in United Way and some other, just statistically, they're the lower professionals that partner with nonprofits. And so she stood out amongst her peers because she was giving back to the community, and her customers, her patients, loved that. So, cause marketing, mutually beneficial collaboration between a for-profit organization and a nonprofit, differs from corporate giving in that it's not tax deductible, right? So they've got different buckets of funds. They have a foundation bucket, but they also have cause marketing buckets where they're giving money to your organization that's not tax deductible. 89% of consumers would switch brands to ones that's cause-oriented. Some would even pay more. Nonprofits benefit from increased fundraising and enhanced exposure, and it is expected to reach, you know, $1.95 billion in 2015, which is a huge increase, huge increase. So here's a few examples of cause marketing. And you probably see them, like I see them, and I see them every day, where it probably isn't absorbed with all of you, but I mean, Uber, right? No kid hungry. And then the Payback Foundation. And I hate to admit, I was driving on 475 in Toledo. That was a slow drive because we were in traffic. But I was like amazed. Kroger, fighting hunger. So it's not the best picture. Feeding America. And then on the side of it, as I drove by, it had a local food bank name, right?
Did you take a picture?
I didn't on the side one. It's too hard. I was behind it, stuck in traffic, stopped. But I mean, every single organization is getting into the cause marketing front because they know they're going to have more loyal consumers because they're giving back. So this is just, fundraising is an 80-20 in my mind. There are organizations that do fundraising extremely well, that do mass fundraising. I always focus on the 80-20 rule, and I think it's just, it's a more focused, successful approach. And again, there have been organizations who have been wildly successful in the mass end. It's just it's a different fundraising gig. So just to give you a sense of what it looks like, and this is every single organization I go into, whether this is 500,000 or 20 million, the total really doesn't matter, right? The focus is really on 80-20. 80% of the money is going to come in from 20% of the base, and so you identify who your prospects are at various levels, what they potentially might give, and that's based on conversations of identifying partners and doing homework. You know, there's a lot of public information, particularly in companies, and understanding 990s and who they're giving to. So there's what is called GuideStar. So any foundation that's out there giving money, they have to publicly, you know, the 990 report, and through GuideStar, you can find the board of directors' names and then every single organization they've ever given to, which, go ahead.
So, well, what is GuideStar? It's a website or it's a...
Yeah, it's a website, and they track all 990s, which have to be turned in on behalf of a non-for-profit if you're, a foundation. So if I want to go, the Herrick Foundation is the third largest foundation in Detroit, and I'm trying to figure out, what is the average ask, and even though it says what their mission is, I will tell you by the time that a mission is created on a foundation, it's changed 10 times over the years based on need. And so I never look at the mission, because oftentimes you're not going to fit into the mission, right? Oftentimes you're not, because they've changed. So automatically people look at the mission, oh, well, they don't give to, well, not necessarily the case, right? So I look at the board of directors, and then you'll also find on the following pages, obviously the total value of the foundation, and all foundations have to give 5% away on an annual basis, have to give 5%. They're not limited, but have to give 5%. And then you can print out all of the nonprofits that they're supporting, and it will give you a view of the types of organization they're supporting as well as the level, which then for me gives me an idea of, oh, they have given $1 million gift, so we're not outside the realm. Or, oh, they're only making $5,000 contributions, so to ask for $50,000 isn't realistic. And then, of course, the board of directors, the best way to be successful in an ask is if you know someone who's on the board of directors that can help facilitate your request. So with the scale of giving, it really just identifies how many gifts you need at each level to get to your total, and it is a heck of a lot easier to get to a total with fewer larger gifts than 20 smaller gifts. So, questions, thoughts? I know, Rhonda, you were going to maybe share a few things on your steps that you've gone through to be successful.
Well, first of all, I have to let everybody know how she became a family member, and to tell the truth. So each one of us has a family, and some of us have family members that don't want to be your family members, and some of us have family members that love being part of your family. Sheila has pushed herself onto our family. So we have what we call an F2 extended family, which is made up of very good friends and their family, and we've all become one family. But I have to tell you that Sheila has taught me a lot about asking, and she is the best asker for anything, whether it's dollars or whether it's help. 10:30 at night, she'll text my husband and ask him to take over the campaign chair for Sunshine. And he's already answering yes, and I said, what does Sheila want? Well, she wants me to chair the campaign for Sunshine. I don't even know how much you guys are raising.
3.5, not much.
So it doesn't even faze her, but she has a very amazing talent that I'm learning from. I was on the foundation board with Sheila as being the director at the hospital, and she has taught me how to ask from anything, whether it's $250 or $10,000. I'm becoming a lot more comfortable at it because, like she said, they can't say no.
What a hearing aid sale.
For Sheila,
No,
no,
What?
even it was amazing to watch her even in Jordan. Number 11, she hooked on to number 11. And what's going to happen to number 11 when the batteries die? I'm like, Sheila, come on, we'll get them better. No, they need to. How are you going to sustain this? And it's the truth. We don't think about it, but she's, bringing this knowledge to me and making me look at it in a different way. I don't know what to say. A good example of, I just had a party which she missed, but she had been proud because it turned into, the anniversary party for our practice, but it turned into educating people about our mission trips, Care Connection. I'm getting text messages every day now saying, you guys are doing an amazing job. Where can I write the check to? So it's like, it doesn't have to Sheila has really taught me that. A good example of what they've done with ProMedica you might want to share, and I know this is big difference between where we're at, but it's could be where we're going to be at, is how ProMedica started the fundraising in Florida.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Florida is a great place to fundraise because actually, besides the fact that you want to be there in the winter, right? Which actually the entire executive team thought that was my number one reason, right? And so I had an uphill battle with the CEO and the CFO. ProMedica Health System has 14 hospitals. It's this huge thing. And I said, I want to take the fundraising team to Florida to fundraise. And they're like, yeah, this is a boondoggle, is what the CEO said, boondoggle, right? And I said, no. Florida is where people are relaxed. I can get a 15-minute appointment with someone when they're up here because they're crazed and they're running around. I go to Florida, and we actually, the first year, I talked them into it. I said, just trust the process. And we created these events where we would host people socially because they're out of their social network, right? And they kind of miss people. And so we would host people from Toledo and all of the regions we're serving in one location. We did this in 3 different sections of Florida, and people would come and we'd just update them on the hospital, and we'd bring in a physician. So one year we brought in the heart specialist to talk about new heart strategies for the organization. People came to learn a little bit, so it was not a 25 or 30-minute presentation, but a quick 10, 15-minute, and they wanted to come and learn, socialize, good wine always helps. And then we'd follow up with people and we'd have individual meetings. And there was one donor that I'd been trying to have a casual conversation. The art of fundraising is understanding what their needs are. So I went to this one donor. The husband was a board member, and the wife wasn't very involved. They have the means, they were aligned with the organization, they lived in Defiance, and we needed a women's center. So I said, let's go ask them. It was like the biggest mistake of my life, right? Let's go ask them for a women's center. She's a female. We need the women's center. And so we presented, we hosted them at the hospital in the boardroom. And it's the Farrells. And they've given me permission to share the story. And 10 minutes, I bring the CEO from Toledo, and we've got this big presentation. After 15 minutes, she goes, thank you very much. And she got up and walked out. And Dan looks at me and he goes, the husband looks, wow, that went really well. So I wrote them a note and just said, thank you so much for saying no. You're really valued, because I didn't want them to feel, now they said no, right? It's like we have no interest. She walked out of the room. It was all very, very awkward. And I didn't want to lose the partnership, so I just said, obviously we missed the mark here. Thank you so much for taking the time. We love you. See you when we're in Florida. So then I followed up when I was in Florida, and we went out to dinner, and after a few glasses of wine, said, so where is it that we went? We were joking, like, well, that meeting went really well. And I said, where did we go wrong? What is, actually Barbara asked the question, Barbara Steele, who's one of our presidents, said, what are you passionate about? And Sharon said, I dream of Caitlin's Cottage. I dream of a developmentally disabled home where kids can go to from a health perspective. Well, it just happened, she has a grandchild that has a significant disability that we were unaware of because we didn't take the time to learn more about her and what her needs were. And on our strategic plan at ProMedica was a home for autistic children. It just happened to be in Toledo, not in Defiance, Ohio. And I said, Sharon, that's on our strategic plan. Oh my gosh, this would be great. She goes, well, it has to be in Defiance. I said, well, let's dream the dream. 2 months later, and we asked her for a $500,000 contribution for the Women's Center. Without asking, she gave us $1 million. And then they led on the capital campaign, and in 1 year raised $2.5 million for the organization. And they opened up all the doors, right? But it was because we totally, and it was such, I've been doing fundraising for 30 years, and this is 20 years into my career, and how do you make such a mistake of, because sometimes you forget because you're so focused on your own needs, that I didn't take the time to listen to the donor to really understand what it is that she was interested in. So transactional gifts are those that, yeah, I'll give you $250, go away, right? And those are cool too, right? You don't want to not take those. But the most catalytic gifts are those where you align the donor's passion, needs, and wants with your organization and identifying who those folks are, whether it's a business or a corporation or an individual, because those are going to be your greatest returns. And so,
And I think the people that you don't ask, like at a presentation, and it's a quiet evening, and you're not focusing on making it a fundraiser, but then reach out to you later on, that's a good source too.
yeah. As a matter of fact, with Sunshine, we hosted, we have a art studio, and we're trying to further integrate the developmentally disabled back into the community as opposed to on the farm where they're at, where they're located. And so we hosted an event where it was a clay event at the art studio, and invited a whole bunch of folks who drove 2 hours to come and learn more about Sunshine and make a clay pot. And then we had the clients were serving there, participating, right? So everyone was in the same room. It was a simple evening, 2 hours, and we walked away with one donor who called the next day and gave us $100,000, no ask. We didn't do any ask. We just talked about the program. We had a slide presentation, left them with the case for support, and just said, if you're at all interested in what we're doing, we'd love for you to partner with us and consider a gift of significance to our organization. The next day, got a phone call for $100,000. I mean, it was amazing. And there were many other, but I mean, someone who was on our prospect list, not at the $100,000 level, but was moved.
So each one of us being in a different city, it's kind of difficult to think of a huge event or a huge campaign. So what advice would you give like to each one of us just to be able to get it going?
Well, I think if you came up with a common framework on a case for support, because it's going to be really hard for all of you to try to put something like this together. And this is campaign driven, but the case for support is really just summarizing what are you fundraising for, right? And obviously it's those in need, right? So that you can continue that mission and focus on the underserved. And so capturing that, and you could have an international flavor depending on, right, and how, and so you have examples of both international and national, and that would be the tool. I will tell you that anytime I have people who do fundraising, no one will go out unless they have something. So it's hysterical because we've got great organizations and we've got other materials, but unless they've got something in their hand, and it really does provide credibility to your organization to have something official that's representative of what you're asking, the cause. And so putting together a case for support would be really important. And then I think depending on the community you're in, really identifying, like with Rhonda, it's individuals and corporations, in California, there might be some really significant corporations that would want to partner based on the fact that, they're a vendor of yours. Vendors are low-hanging fruit, to be honest with you, and great opportunities for partnership because they're already aligned with you. But then there's just local corporations that would benefit because of the alignment, because they look, they're appearing to be a community partner. So a lot of it is based on your own sphere of influence. I will tell you that at Opportunity International, of course, we'd have thousands and thousands of corporations, and it's like, how do you go to? Which one do you go to first? How do we figure out that alignment? And we started sorting it by who's our lowest hanging fruit relative to mission, cause, and then who do we have connectivity, and if it was someone at the C-suite, and then all of a sudden that popped really quick, right? Because if I'm trying to get through P&G and I know a vice president as opposed to the CEO, that might not hit, as strong as someone who might have connectivity to the CEO. For instance, Randy Ostra at ProMedica, we're trying to partner with him for Sunshine, and Hussein will end up Rhonda's husband will make the call. Now we could go through the advocacy office and we're going to get in line with 500 other organizations that are asking for money. But if I can get in to see Randy, the CEO, and someone knows Randy to be able to get in and present this cause to him, our outcomes are going to be way more significant. And so that's where you prioritize every organization I work with. All right, let's identify who are our prospects, and you get into a room and talk through corporations, individuals, what is their potential, and then where do we have connectivity. And then I sort it from the 80-20. Okay, because there's 100 calls here, which ones do you do first? So I always look at, okay, well, where are our greatest opportunities from a financial return? Not that I'm not going to get to everybody, but if I've got someone who has potential of giving me $10,000 versus $100, focus on the greater opportunities, because that's going to get you to where you need quicker. So it's a focused, tactical way of looking at who might be partnering with you.
And we've been very lucky. Sheila's trip back in May, when we came back from the plane, she was very energetic, as she always is, wanting to help, and she actually stepped up to the plate and said, I'd love to help in Theos as much as I can, to a certain time, just like Joe, giving advice and trying to help us get off the ground. So I want to thank you.
Yeah,
for doing
I'm
that.
thrilled to be here. Thrilled to be here.
Can I make a comment and then follow up with a question? So you gave a statistic, was it $4 billion in giving in 2014? People, when we first started the idea of doing a not-for-profit in our area, I was a total doubting Tom. Nora was like, we're gonna stop our advertising budget and we're gonna use it all and we're gonna support a local not-for-profit. We're gonna start, and I'm like, and we were with the buyers group prior to Entheos, and they thought we were crazy. And so we had some, very distinct conversations where we're like, we don't want to run your bunny ad with one ear up and one ear down, and the returns on those are at least going down in our market, and it's a lot of conflicting, confusing advertising out there. And we've had, since we've done that and kind of took a step of faith, and used some of that for cause marketing, maybe some sponsorship of getting goodwill through our donations to the not-for-profit. We've had our best, at least the last 2 years, our best two book-wise years in the last 15. So it does work, and there's money's out there to obtain. It's not like you have to be pro-medica to go out there and get $500,000 give.
Right.
The money's out there, and that's why I think
It is.
we've proved some of the doubting Toms wrong. I think you're finding that early out of the gate with your initial asks. Second thing is that there's the question is, you put up a slide saying that 89% of consumers would prefer to do business with a company that gives back. And then you had some would actually be willing to pay more. Our industry is totally battling the commoditization and it's just a one-time transactional hearing healthcare issue, and then our challenge is trying to differentiate ourselves from that. That asterisk, was there a specific article on the top of your head that you quoted with that? Or?
Yeah, I can send it.
I think that'd be a
Yep,
great
yep.
read.
I can send some supporting information on the cause marketing fund and social entrepreneurship, which is really, you're seeing master's and undergraduate programs pop up all over on social entrepreneurship, and it's for-profit businesses benefiting nonprofit world.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a hard leap of faith because you're used to driving from a advertising perspective, and I would tell you, people have an innate need to make the world a better place and be a part of something greater, and particularly the millennials, right? And so you have a win-win scenario here, and when you can tell a story. So when I started working with Betty at Sunshine, she's like, oh, I got this great white paper for the case book. And it was like 30 pages. I'm like, no. We need to tell a story, right? And it's as simple as the story, the people, and the lives that you're touching. You have hundreds of them, right? And then when you're meeting needs in the community that aren't otherwise met, and blending that in one practice, you know, doesn't have to be international, and you share those stories and tell those stories. And then there's the PR component, which is another important piece, right, that Rhonda's having Chris Peterson help her with, so that we can better share the stories, which then has, you don't need marketing, you don't need the bunny ears, right? Because you're going to share a story about a child or an adult hearing for the first time ever that wouldn't otherwise, right?
Yeah, and I'm not even suggesting you need to go out there and burn your advertising budget, because to your point, there is monies out there. The community, you know, being able to help your community hear better and helping the least of these and those that can't afford your services, the community will, you know, it doesn't have to be on your backs. I mean, the community, it's amazing how many interactions and how many kind of divine appointments we've had just by going out and telling our story, telling the issue of hearing loss, how rampant it is, and the fact that, you know, this is an expensive care course and not everybody can do it, and it's important that we give them dignity and we give them the care that they deserve. And the community has rallied around so incredibly much. It's been amazing.
Can I tell one story? Right before we left for Jordan, it was the day before, and I wasn't going to go into the office because I had way too much to do. But then I had to go to the office for something, and so I run in, and most of our office providers were at an outside office, so it was just me. And I saw a patient car shouldn't be there because that office was closed that day. We were out, but there was a patient car. And I thought, okay, who's here? And so I slip in the back door. They saw me slip in and ran to my computer going, okay, I have too much to do. I don't have time. And sure enough, Amanda, our front office manager, comes back to me and she goes, Nora, the greats saw you come in and they really want to talk to you. And here I was at my computer going, I don't have time. I got to do all this. Well, Dwayne Great and his wife, when we first started this nonprofit, just through conversations in the practice of what we were doing, he said, I am in a group, and can you come and talk to my group about what you're doing? So the invites start flowing about come and tell the stories of what you're doing. So I went 2 years ago to his group of retired military folks, and I thought I gave the most killer presentation of my whole life. Ended up, when I walked out of there, I had my fly open the whole time. And I knew it because I felt the breeze when I stepped outside. It's a true story. So I thought, oh,
I'm checking mine.
This is never going to go anywhere. I just made a complete fool of myself. Well, there was Dwayne Great in my office the day before we go to Jordan. I came out, I sat with him, and he told me ever since that time, he's been putting donation boxes out. He's been working with all these people, collecting used hearing aids for us. He just became president of his alliance, and I can't remember which group he was in, and he said, and we get to pick, we have to pick a charity that for the year that I'm president, we're gonna support. And he said, we picked you. So now he's hooking us up to Indy, and he started crying, saying, I was in the United States military, World War II, and this is the thing, helping you get hearing aids to fit it on the less privileged people this is how we bring peace to the world. He's like, I fought, and this is how I'm gonna use my life to bring peace. And he was crying, and I thought, how can we, that was a simple conversation telling a simple story that a patient for 2 years, I had no idea, has been out in the community advocating for us. So if he's doing it, how many more?
Right.
It's amazing the stories we get on a daily basis of people coming along to help us. And that's why we just have to duplicate this in your communities. And there's money to duplicate it, and that's why it was so exciting to have Sheila here today. Because we don't have to do it all on our dollar. People
Right. Actually, there's fatigue then if you end up doing it in your own dollar, right? Because then you're just like, right, I'm done. Whereas all of a sudden you have a team of people to help you, and you might even be able to hire someone new to cover a new population. So there are great opportunities.
Sheila, I have a question. The stories that need to be told. Should it be separated, international versus local, or is it okay to blend both?
It depends. It really depends on the community. There is a faction, and it was a challenge when I worked at Opportunity International, because there is a strong population that believes that that's another country, not my problem, right? We have our own needs in our own country. Now, when you go there, of course, the needs are totally different. We have support services, but regardless, you need to understand your community and what they're going to respond to. You've done an excellent job of identifying within Toledo the population that would be interested in supporting that.
Right, I've been told right out by a major corporation, I'm gonna give you money, but I don't want it to go to Africa.
Yeah,
Which I was shocked, because I'm like, oh, this guy's a giving guy.
yeah,
But he said, we have people here, we need to take care of our people.
yeah.
So that's kind of why I wonder, I'd love to do like a historical.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
of course,
Yeah.
but-
And that's that donor-centric of understanding who you're presenting to. And then you have and you might be able to share both stories, right? But then you have the ability to restrict
Right.
your dollars. So when they say, well, do you have a system in place to make sure that my dollars go to Toledo, Ohio? And you better have a system in place, right? And then, of course, and this is fundraising 102 next time, but the systems in place to acknowledge and thank contributions and the ongoing cultivation is really critical, because you're not selling a pen. This isn't a transaction and you can sell another pen next year, but they get nothing in return. And I'm sure we've all experienced times where we've contributed and you get this like form letter, right? Dear patron, thanks so much for your $25 contribution, or even I've had it with your $500 contribution, right? No personalization whatsoever. And I'm thinking, did it really matter? They didn't even take the time to acknowledge it. And then there's some organizations that just don't acknowledge it because they're too busy. There's no systems in place. And it's really critical that you take the time to personalize. Dear Brady, thank you very much for your awesome $500 contribution. It makes a huge difference. We love you. And then it's a live signature, right? It doesn't have to be a 10-paragraph, but people go to, did they spell my name right? Did they get the amount right? Is the restriction the right where they're spending the money on international, because that's what I gave to? And is it a live signature? And I actually have one foundation, Melissa Sage of the Sage Foundation. I laughed when she told me, but she'll open up request letters and she'll go like this. And if it is a dropped signature, it goes in the trash. It goes in the trash. She refuses, if someone didn't take the time to personally sign the request letter to ask for requests for funds on behalf of the foundation. So the personalization component, and that's where you can't be personalized on a mass level, right? So who are your greatest prospects? Focus on those and then follow up. It's not complicated. It's not brain surgery. There's a science to it, and that's for a more complex organization as you grow. And I would encourage you to dream the dream. Can you imagine what you can do? These great organizations, nonprofits out there, they started in a room just like this, right? And can you imagine finding a major corporate partner that would help do what you're talking about?
To Rhonda's question about the difference between the international versus the local, and Brady, you brought this up briefly earlier. I think it's really helpful to be able to start in your own neighborhood first. And when we started, it was literally a free dormer up in our upstairs. We have a renovated house, and it was a storage area. We kind of cleared out, and that was our not-for-profit area. And Nora would come in, half day a week, or I forget how when we first started, it might not even have been that. It was just, well, we'll just do something, right? So it wasn't fancy and hundreds of thousands of dollars raised. It was okay. But with our point being, even if we just help 3 or 4 or 5 people that would come into my office, and I'm like, trying to grab some crappy 10-year-old BT out of a drawer and spending all this time because I don't want to say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do. Go away because you don't have money. When I would try to help them, I wouldn't be able to help them in the highest best way because we have real costs. You couldn't just go out and buy somebody $2,000 worth of hearing aids and fit them on them. So we said even if we start just really small and just help people that are coming in that truly can't afford our services, we'll start there. And then it's grown and grown through fundraising opportunities, and people, again, way beyond Nora and I and people involved with your care, the people that rallied around us and now do more work for it than we do. But on the international side of that, it is really helpful because once a year we take the #1 celebrity in Fort Wayne and the news team. We do a big promotional thing once a year called Hearing the Call in our market. And you certainly get people that'll call in like, why are we traveling halfway around the world? And it does give us the perfect chance to advocate for our local not-for-profit to say, look, you're exactly right. That's why 50 weeks a year we're right here providing local service. And even if you were to say, well, once a month I open up my office on Tuesday afternoons, and even if it's for 3 hours, it's something. That's a big component because if you don't have that, then you might go, you may not have a strong answer.
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good point.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah.
That was terrific.
Make sure to